Hello! Today I'm going to create a thief that'll be good for most beginner players. This thief is going to be made to fill a couple of vital roles in the group: the Stealthy Infiltrator and the Skills Monkey. In some video games, the stealthy type is portrayed as the assassin who can sneak around undetected, making a brutal attack before their enemies know what's going on. With some patience and some good rolls, a thief can get to the objective and back out unscathed. If this is the type of character you want to play, then let's get started. I'm going to build it all the way out as a level 1 character, then show you how the character progresses through the levels. I'm going to make a solid thief. I'm going to keep it fairly simple. You get a lot thrown at you up front in this game, so I want to build you a character that you can play while you learn the basics, but at the same time, not give you a bad character for the sake of simplicity. Lastly, I'm going to try to stick with the cliches and stereotypes so you know what they are and you can see why they work. From there, you can decide where you want to go. Either stick with them or break the mold. If you have questions, hopefully this video will answer most of them. If not, you can leave a comment and I'll try to help you out. If you ask most people that enjoy Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition or 5e where you should start, they're likely going to tell you to start with a character concept. You can think of a movie, show, or comic book character to base your character around. Or you can think about how you would write an interesting character in a medieval story or gothic novel. I'm not basing this character off of a well-known character or person, but I'm going to start with a basic concept. For the concept of this character, we're going to start off with Robin Hood and his trope about stealing from the rich and giving to the poor. They're going to place a priority on their family and those they consider family. They're also going to credit their success and thievery to their physique rather than their brains. And they're going to be braggadocious about their past exploits. Please like this video and subscribe if you like to see me build more characters. First, we're going to choose our class. Many Dungeons & Dragons sources have you start with race, and that's fine, but if we're going to choose our role in the game, I think the first place you should start is your class. I think the best class for a beginner to make a thief with is Rogue. No surprise there. Being a rogue will give you an access to all the abilities you need to be able to move around undetected and sneak attack with big damage. They are the archetypal assassin or thief. Next, we're going to start putting numbers into abilities. Since I can't know what you're going to roll, I'm going to use something called the standard array, which is a set group of numbers that the designers of the game decided would be pretty average for rolling. The standard array gives you a high number, a low number, and a variety in between. Later, I'm going to convert these ability scores into modifiers. If that sounds confusing, don't worry, it's not. Just keep in mind for later that only even numbers convert. There are a few exceptions, but in general, odd numbers don't do anything. So here's the standard array from highest to lowest. We have to assign each of these numbers to an ability. These abilities need to support our concept in both combat and role-playing. If you're thinking to yourself, geez, I'm not even 5 minutes into making a character and I already have to put numbers next to words that I don't even know what they do. Don't worry about it. Just follow along. Even if you don't understand when I'm done, everyone understands eventually as they play, level up, and make more characters. I like to start with the highest number first. Usually this is where I need to make a big decision, whether or not to prioritize their combat role or their non-combat role. But with this character, we don't have to do that because their most important function can be filled with the same abilities. So I'm going to place a 15 in Dexterity. Dexterity does a lot of things. It helps you dodge things, you'll start your turn sooner when you start combat, it makes a number of your skills better, and it helps you aim. A good rogue will be able to do all of these things well, so that's why Dexterity gets the highest number. I find it most helpful to place the lowest number second. That way everything else just kind of falls in the middle. That said, the 8 is going to go into Intelligence. Even though it's a bad idea to be a thief with a low intelligence, the real truth is most criminals aren't very smart. In D&D, intelligence is mostly used to cast wizard spells and boost knowledge skills like history or religion. A low intelligence doesn't mean you'll be making bad decisions when infiltrating a palace or engaged in combat, because this character will have the experience and natural talent. You can play up this low skill by not having much common sense, or being terrible with spelling, or not being very savvy with new technology. Other than locks and traps, you'll be good at those. Okay, the high number and the low numbers are set. Now let's work our way down, highest to lowest. So I'm going to put the 14 in strength. Normally strength is a dump stat for rogues, but unless you have some kind of special racial feature or magic, climbing is strength based. I want my character to be able to scale walls and get through windows or climb ridges and ambush their enemies. To make sure I can do that from the beginning, I put a good score in strength. Strength also allows you to carry more, jump further, and resist being grabbed or restrained, but I mostly want to be able to climb. Next, I've got a 13 that I'll put into Constitution. This character may have to get close to the enemy every once in a while, and may trigger a poison trap by accident because it comes with the job. Because of this, I'm going to put their Constitution in the middle of the priority list, because your Constitution can give you extra hit points and helps you resist things that might affect your health, like poison. If bolstering your body is important, it's also important to guard your mind, which is why we're going to put the 12 in Wisdom. In Dungeons and Dragons, wisdom is your ability to perceive things, gain insight, or resist someone's ability to manipulate your mind. If your physical health gets you out of bed and gets you to work, your mental health lets you do your job and do it well. That's what this wisdom score will do for us. It will help us stay mentally in the game. That leaves us with our last score, our 10 that we're going to put into Charisma. They're going to be sort of lovable person, but rough around the edges, and not afraid to get their hands dirty. So they get this rather average score for being a common criminal. For our race, I chose what I think is the most cliche race in the game for a thief, a halfling. For starters, halflings get a +2 to dexterity, and I picked the stout sub-race, so we get to add a +1 to constitution also. As you can see here, I've added a +2 to my dexterity, bringing that up to a 17, and I've added a 1 to my constitution to make that a 14. I've also given you the modifiers, and this is why odd numbers don't do much for you. When you have a 10 for an ability, you get a 0 for a modifier. For every additional 2 points over 10 you have in your ability, you'll get an additional +1 to your modifier. So that 17 dexterity might as well be a 16, but there's nothing I can do about it at this point. For every 2 points you have under 10, you get a -1 point to your modifier, like in intelligence. We're going to work our way through the rest of the halfling traits now. In the game, gender doesn't have to take a role, but since I'm going for a Robin Hood vibe, I'm going to make this character a male. If this is an issue for you, you can change the gender. It's not going to have an effect on the character. He's going to be a slightly adorable burglar, so he needs an adorably misspelled word for a name. So I came up with Climber. He's 18 years old. Most halflings mature at 20, so he's still technically an adolescent and starting his life of crime young. For his alignment, I chose Chaotic Good because he's good intentioned, but he's going to try to make that good happen no matter what laws he has to break. Halflings are small in size, which is typical, but their exact height doesn't really make much of a difference in this game. It's mostly for visualization. Halflings are small enough that they don't really need a weight variance, so I just kept them at 40 pounds like most halflings are. Weight in the game is based off pounds, but you can consider them units if you're more familiar with the universal system of measurement. Same with distance and speed, just think of them as units. To explain the speed, I'd have to explain combat, and I'm not going to get into that right now. A speed of 30 is normal, but since Climber is so small, he'll only get a movement speed of 25. Stout halflings also get 4 features. Lucky lets you reroll 1s on attacks, ability checks, and saving throws. Brave gives you advantage on fear saving throws. Nimble lets you move through spaces occupied by any creature larger than you. And Stout Resilience gives you advantage and resistance to poison. Let's go to your background now. A background isn't necessarily going to determine who you are or your personality, but it can. And in this character, it will help sculpt those personality traits and motivations. Being a criminal gives you 2 more skills, so we're going to add Deception and Stealth. For tool proficiencies, he gets Thieves' Tools. He also gets a game proficiency, so I chose playing cards for him because chess is a thinking man's game, and cards is for the lucky, just like him. For equipment, he gets a crowbar, a set of dark common clothes, including a hood, and a belt pouch containing 15 gold pieces. You also get the Criminal Contact attribute. This can let you get some information from a shady network or criminals if you're wanting some information that your DM is willing to give you. Now, we're getting into your class. This is the part that is really going to give you the body to fill your role as a thief and gives you the tools you need to fight. At first level, you get 8 plus 2 hit points. That's your max die roll plus your constitution modifier. A rogue gets these starting proficiencies. He can use light armor without any penalties. He can also use and apply his proficiency bonus to simple weapons, hand crossbows, long swords, rapiers, and short swords. He will have proficiency with dexterity and intelligence saving throws, which means he'll get to add his proficiency bonus when he has to make those saving throws. Rogues get to choose 4 skills they can be proficient in. So Climber will get to add his proficiency bonus to acrobatics, athletics, perception, and sleight of hand skills checks. At first level, your proficiency bonus is +2, and that doesn't change unless you take him up to 5th level. At first level, you get to choose between some equipment options. Here I've already made some good choices for Climber. He'll start with a rapier, short bow with 20 arrows, explorer's pack, leather armor, 2 daggers, and thieves' tools. You'll probably want to grab an extra 20 arrows if you can, just in case you have to go a long time without being able to buy some. The weight of your equipment totals 86, and your max carrying weight, which is 15 times your strength, is 210. This video isn't on how to play D&D 5th edition, but because you're a beginner, I need to talk very briefly on one set of rules of the game before you're moving on, so you understand what I'm going to be talking about next. It's the attack versus armor class rules. It's fairly simple. Everyone in the game has an armor class. The armor class is usually a number between 10 and 20. For physical attacks, whether it's punching, stabbing, or shooting, when you say you want to attack someone, you'll roll a 20-sided die and add a number or 2. We'll get into adding numbers in a minute. If that number you rolled is equal to or higher than the AC number, then you hit them. Roll your damage, and the DM subtracts that number from the target's hit points. Same if they attack you. They roll, add modifiers. If they meet or beat your armor class, then they roll damage for you. Subtract that number from your hit points. In the next slides, I'm going to show you what your attack rolls will look like and what your armor class is going to be. In the gray text, you can see the calculations for how to get the attack and damage number. When you see something like 1d20, the D just means die or dice, and the number like 20 tells you how many sides the die has. The number before the D tells you how many dice to roll. So 1d20 is one 20-sided die. In the black is the total attack and damage, where I've done the math for you for each weapon. Normally using your dexterity modifier for an attack is reserved for ranged weapons like your longbow, and you'd have to use your strength modifier for melee attacks like using a longsword or club. But a rapier is considered a finesse weapon. You can use your dexterity modifier. So you get a +5 to attack whether it's your rapier or short bow. If you hit, the rapier does 1d8 plus 3 damage, and the short bow does 1d6 damage. The range on your short bow is 80/320. The first number is the distance you can shoot before you attack at a disadvantage. Disadvantage is when you roll 2d20 and take the lowest number. For most combats, that range will let you shoot across most of the battlefield, no problem. The second number is your maximum range, so you can't hit anything beyond 320. Here I show you your armor and your total armor class. This is the number they have to meet or beat to hit you. An AC of 14 to 16 is average for a first level character. At low levels, if the bad guy has +3 to their attacks, odds are they'll be able to hit you a little less than half the time. Those odds aren't great, so you'll want to keep your distance and stay hidden from the enemies, only getting close when you have to. At first level, a rogue gets 3 features. The first one is expertise. You choose 2 skills that you're proficient with, and you can double your proficiency bonus. For climber, I chose stealth and perception. I chose stealth because it's a rogue's bread and butter in my opinion. I chose perception because it's the most used skill in the game, but these skills fit the character too. He wants to move around undetected, and he wants to find where all the hidden things are and avoid traps. Next is sneak attack. Basically, when he has advantage or if someone else is within 5 feet of an enemy, you get to do extra damage. This isn't very hard to do, it just takes a little bit of planning and maneuvering. One of the big draws to the rogue class is getting to sneak around in the shadows and land a high damage blow. You get that with this ability. Also, this ability does more damage every other level. The third rogue feature is Thieves' Cant. The description is a long way of saying that you can get a language that only thieves know. Most languages are racial in nature, but the only way you get this language is by taking the rogue class. In the bio, I like to cover their background and class, and why they chose it, or why their class chose them. I also like to elaborate on their alignment. These are the explanations for Climber. Climber is a criminal because when he was young, he figured out he had a knack for getting into places that others can't. Having access to all the items in those places that he wasn't supposed to have access to was very exciting to him. His class is Rogue because he developed those skills as a criminal. He's good because he doesn't want to ever hurt good people and would never help evil people. Personal characteristics are additional ways to flesh out your character. They will help you get to the core of who they are and how they act. I usually look at the options given in the background and handpick the ones I think work for my concept, or I'll modify them to fit even better. Occasionally, I'll just come up with my own. For his personality, he's a team player and thinks of his party as his crew. However, he usually volunteers to scout first or go solo. For his ideal, he steals from the wealthy so that he can help people in need, and because he thinks he's good at it. His bond to his family means that his ill-gotten gains go to support his family and a girlfriend. But when he sees something valuable, he can't think about anything else but how to steal it until something else catches his eye. This doesn't mean he always has to steal, but sometimes the temptation is just too strong. I'm really going to set the foundation for his background here. When you create a character, it's usually a good idea to talk about the people closest to them. Parents, siblings, best friends, boyfriend, girlfriend, etc. This way the DM has a way to motivate you to do something, or give you help by bringing them into the game to help you. For Climber, he grew up in a big family with 2 older brothers, a younger brother, and a sister who was the youngest. His father rarely stayed employed and would hawk stolen or cheaply made goods at the market, that is, when he wasn't fishing at a nearby pond. With so many siblings and a reprobate father, Climber had to cut out his own niche and his mother's attention. He chose to be the problem child for this attention. It started off with him being the loudest of the roughest boys, then escalated to small crimes that would often result in constabulary escort home. When he was 16, he met a girl, Darkus. She was 18 and her beauty shines through to Climber in spite of her slightly asymmetrical features and her intentional shunning of her own vanity. Climber won her attention with his immature stunts and recalcitrant behavior. After a few months, they spent most of their time together. Even though Darkus initially thought his rebelliousness was admirable, even participating in some petty crimes, after 2 years she started thinking seriously about adulthood and asked Clymer to straighten out and use his talents for something more legitimate. He rejected the idea of enlisting in the army or spying for the crown, so he compromised and decided to strike out on his own adventure. If you're just building to level 1, you can stop here. If you're just making a level 1 character, then he's done. You have everything you need to fill in the blanks in your own character sheet. If you want to see how a rogue progresses through the next few levels, then keep watching. Let's take Clymer up to 2nd level. At every level, you get to add more hit points. As a rogue, the rules let you either roll a d8 or take the average. I'm going to take the average and add my Constitution modifier for 7 more hit points for a total of 17. Clymer will get 7 hit points every level unless his Constitution is raised. The rogue feature you get at 2nd level is called Cunning Action. It lets you dash, disengage, or hide as a bonus action instead of an action. I'm not going to get into the action economy and combat, but what I will tell you is that this ability is good. I'll give you 2 examples why it's so good. Normally, if you try to move in, stab someone, and move out, they get to take a swipe at you with an opportunity attack as you try to move out. But with Cunning Action, you can move in, attack, use your bonus action to disengage, then use the rest of your movement to get away with no opportunity attack. Another common use is when you're hiding. You come out of hiding when you shoot someone, then you use your Cunning Action to hide again. Normally you would just stay visible after you shoot and either stay out next round or use your action to hide again. Rogues normally have lower hit points and low armor class, so this ability will help you avoid being a target. Let's look at advancing to 3rd level next. First we'll add 7 hit points for a total of 24. Then we'll change our sneak attack damage to 2d6 instead of 1d6. Nice. And at 3rd level, I also have to decide on a subclass for the rogue. To be the most thievingest thief that ever thieved, we are going with Thief. I know, the mystery was killing you. As a thief, the first feature you get is called Fast Hands. This adds some things that you can do to your Cunning Action. You can use a bonus action to use Sleight of Hand, disarm a trap, open a lock, or use an object. This is going to be useful in more rare situations, like you're able to slip a ring of protection off the evil mage's fingers as a bonus action, then attack him if your DM allows you. Or you get cornered by an ogre, and the only escape is through a trap door that you disarm as a bonus action. Open the door, then move through it. Those situations are pretty unlikely, but if they do happen, you'll be glad you have Fast Hands. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the moment we've been working towards. This is the fate that was awaiting for Clymer to arrive. At 3rd level, he'll also get 2nd story work. Normally, you can only move half your speed when climbing, but with this feature, you're able to move your full movement. Unfortunately, this ability doesn't give you additional benefits to athletics check when climbing, and that's why I made sure Clymer has a decent strength score. Because when you climb things like stone walls, you're going to have to make an athletics check that is based off of your strength score. Now, if you're going to take this character up to level 6, there you would get expertise again, and I would definitely make athletics an expertise skill. In addition to your climbing speed, you also get to jump a few extra feet when you get a running start. This can actually be pretty helpful even at this level. Since your strength is a 14, you're only able to long jump 14 feet, which is just a foot shy if you have a 15-foot gap you need to jump. With 2nd story work, you add another 3 feet to your jump, so you'll be able to clear the 15-foot gap without having to grab the ledge and possibly falling. Again, a pretty rare situation, but it could come up. Finally, the 4th level. We'll give him another 7 hit points. At 4th level, we can select either an ability score improvement or feat, so I'm going to take a feat. The feat I chose is Piercer. The first thing you get with Piercer is a +1 to your dexterity. That feels so good to have a page full of even numbers. This makes my dexterity an 18 and its modifier a +4. For the rest of the feat, when you use a weapon that does piercing damage, like your short bow or rapier, you can re-roll 1 bad damage roll per turn. But you have to keep the new roll, so I'd probably only use this when I roll a 1 or a 2 on the damage dice. Also, when you roll a natural 20 and score a critical hit, you get to add on an additional damage die to the damage. Let's say you're using your rapier and you get a critical hit on a sneak attack. Normally at 4th level on a critical hit, you'll get to roll 2d8 and 46. With this, you'll get to roll an additional d8, so 3d8 and 46. That's a decent critical hit if I do say so. Speaking of critical hits, if you thought this video was or would be helpful to someone starting to play D&D, critically hit that like button. And if you would like to see more parties built one character at a time, subscribe. If you like this video and want to keep seeing more, you can donate to the channel via PayPal. Thanks for your support, and please feel free to comment below on things you'd like to see in the future videos. That's all for my video. Have a good game.